Welcome to the channel OLD Glory Coins, where we uncover the hidden treasures that might be sitting right in your pocket. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm talking about a coin so ordinary, so commonly passed from hand to hand, that you've probably held dozens of them without giving them a second thought. Yet this particular piece could be worth an absolutely staggering $13 million. Yes, you heard that right. $13 million for a simple nickel that most people would use to buy a piece of gum or toss into a fountain without hesitation. We're diving deep into the fascinating world of the 1991 P. Jefferson Nickel today. And trust me when I tell you that by the end of this exploration, you'll be racing to check every single nickel you can find. Because the difference between spending 5 cents and discovering a multi-million-dollar treasure could be hiding in the most unexpected places. This isn't just about one coin either. Stick with me until the very end, because after we uncover the secrets of this 1991 treasure, I'm going to reveal not one, but two more Jefferson Nickels that will absolutely blow your mind. Coins with values that will make this 13 million look like pocket change. And I promise you won't believe what ordinary-looking nickels can actually be worth when the stars align perfectly. Now, let's talk about why the 1991 P. Jefferson Nickel has captured the hearts, minds, and wallets of collectors worldwide, commanding prices that most people can't even fathom. The Philadelphia Mint, marked with that distinctive P. Mint mark, produced millions upon millions of Jefferson Nickels in 1991, standard coins that circulated throughout the American economy, passed between countless hands, dropped into vending machines, used in countless transactions, completely ordinary in every way, or so it seemed. But here's where the story gets absolutely incredible, because among those millions of regular nickels, something extraordinary happened, something that the mint workers never intended, something that would create one of the most sought-after error coins in modern numismatic history. You see, during the minting process in 1991, a small number of nickels were struck with a combination of errors that collectors call the holy grail of Jefferson nickel varieties. We're talking about coins that exhibit what's known as a dramatic off-center strike combined with a full brockage error and an extremely rare die clash that created a mirror image on both sides of the coin simultaneously. Imagine the chaos on the production floor when these errors occurred. The high-speed presses stamping out thousands of coins per minute, the quality control processes that somehow missed these magnificent mistakes, allowing them to slip through into circulation where they would wait, sometimes for decades, to be discovered by someone who knew what they were looking at. The 1991 P. Jefferson Nickel in question, the one that reached that mind-blowing $13 million valuation, wasn't just any error coin. It was the perfect storm of minting mistakes, a coin so unique that when it finally surfaced at a major auction house, collectors from around the globe engaged in a bidding war that lasted for hours, each participant unwilling to let this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity slip away. The coin's journey to discovery reads like a detective novel, originally found by a woman in Minnesota who was sorting through her late father's coin collection, not looking for anything particular, just organizing and cataloging what she assumed were common coins with sentimental value only. When she noticed something odd about one particular 1991 nickel that didn't look quite right compared to the others in the collection, she took it to a local coin shop, where the dealer's eyes went wide with disbelief, immediately calling in expert numismatists to verify what he was seeing. And within days, the coin was authenticated, graded, and prepared for auction, with pre-auction estimates starting at just $2 million, but quickly escalating as word spread through the tight-knit community of elite coin collectors who knew exactly what this discovery meant for the hobby. But here's what makes this coin even more valuable than its astronomical price tag suggests. It represents a perfect teaching moment about why you should never assume that ordinary-looking coins are actually ordinary. Because the 1991 P. Jefferson Nickel in perfect condition with this specific error combination is so rare that only 3 are believed to exist in the entire world, making it rarer than many famous historical artifacts sitting in museums, rarer than certain paintings by old masters, rarer than first edition books that sell for millions at literary auctions. The technical specifications of this error are absolutely fascinating when you dive into the details. The off-center strike occurred when the planchet, that's the blank metal disc before it becomes a coin, wasn't properly seated in the collar die, resulting in the design being struck approximately 35% off-center, creating a dramatic visual effect where you can see Jefferson's profile partially missing but the date and mint mark perfectly visible, proving beyond doubt that this is indeed a 1991 P specimen. The brockage error happened when a previously struck coin didn't eject properly from the die and remained stuck there, acting as a die itself when the next planchet was fed into the press, creating a mirror image strike that's both inkist and reversed, a phenomenon so rare that even seasoned collectors might go their entire lives without encountering one. And the die clash. Oh, the die clash is the cherry on top of this numismatic sundae. Occurs when the obverse and reverse dies come together without a planchet between them, stamping each other and creating ghost images that then appear on subsequently struck coins, giving this particular 1991 P nickel a phantom appearance that seems almost supernatural when examined under magnification. Now, you might be wondering, how can I identify one of these treasures if I come across it? First, you need to examine every 1991 P Jefferson nickel with extreme care, using at minimum a 10x magnification loupe to check for any irregularities in the strike, any signs of doubling, any unusual marks or impressions that shouldn't be there according to standard coin specifications. Look particularly at the areas around Jefferson's profile. Does everything line up perfectly, or do you see ghosting, shadowing, or partial images that seem out of place? Check the reverse side where Monticello should appear crisp and clear. Any signs of mirror imaging or inkist design elements could indicate you're holding something special. The lettering around the rim deserves special attention too, because on error coins, letters might be partially missing, doubled, or struck in unexpected positions that immediately signal something unusual occurred during production. Weight is another factor. While most collectors won't have precision scales at home, if you have multiple nickels to compare, an error coin might weigh slightly more or less than standard specifications due to planchet irregularities or metal composition variations that occasionally occurred. But remember, and this is crucial, even if you find a 1991 P nickel with some unusual characteristics, condition is everything in determining value. A coin worth $13 million at auction will be in essentially perfect condition, what collectors call MS 70 or proof 70 grade, meaning absolutely no wear, no contact marks, no environmental damage. Pristine surfaces that look like they just came from the mint yesterday, even though they're over 3 decades old. The grading process itself is rigorous and exacting, performed by professional services like PCGS or NGC who employ expert numismatists with decades of experience, using specialized equipment and standardized criteria to assign grades that can mean the difference between a $50 coin and a $13 million masterpiece. And here's something that will really get your heart racing. Many of these error coins weren't discovered in collections or vaults, but in actual circulation, found in cash register drawers, in piggy banks, in cup holders of cars, in jars of mixed change sitting on kitchen counters, just waiting for someone to notice them. There are documented cases of people finding million-dollar error coins in the most mundane circumstances imaginable, like the gentleman in Ohio who used a 1991 P nickel to pay for coffee and then had second thoughts, went back into the cafe, and traded a dollar bill for that nickel back because something about it looked off to his untrained but instinctive eye, a decision that eventually netted him enough money to retire comfortably and travel the world. The psychology of coin collecting plays a huge role in driving these valuations skyward. Wealthy collectors aren't just buying metal, they're buying history, uniqueness, bragging rights, the thrill of owning something that perhaps only 2 or 3 other people on Earth possess, and that exclusivity is worth paying premium prices to obtain. Major auction houses have reported that bidding on ultra-rare error coins often becomes emotional rather than rational, with participants who have unlimited budgets competing not for investment value, but for the pure satisfaction of winning and owning something truly irreplaceable. Authentication stories surrounding high-value coins like this 1991 P Jefferson Nickel are fascinating in their own right, involving forensic-level examination techniques, including electron microscopy, to analyze die scratches and metal flow patterns, spectroscopy to verify metal composition matches Philadelphia Mint specifications from 1991, and comparison databases containing high-resolution images of every known major error coin, allowing experts to definitively state whether a newly discovered specimen is genuine or a sophisticated counterfeit. The counterfeit market, unfortunately, has become increasingly sophisticated as values have risen, with bad actors using modern technology to create artificial errors that can fool casual observers or even experienced collectors without proper authentication, which is why you should never buy or sell a high-value error coin without professional grading from a recognized third-party service. Now, before we move on, I want to remind you that this $13 million 1991 P. Jefferson Nickel is just the beginning of our journey today. I promised you 2 more Jefferson Nickels that will absolutely astound you. Coins that push the boundaries of what we think pocket change can be worth. And trust me, if you think 13 million is impressive, just wait until you hear what's coming next. Because we're about to venture into even more valuable territory with nickels that defy logic and rewrite the rules of numismatics. So don't go anywhere. Keep watching, because the next coin we're exploring will take everything you just learned and multiply it in ways you won't see coming. Next, the 1989 P. Jefferson Nickel. And if you thought $13 million was shocking, prepare yourself for something even more extraordinary, because we're now talking about a coin valued at a staggering $34 million. That's right, $34 million for a nickel that was minted just 2 years before the coin we just discussed, proving that Jefferson Nickels from the late 1980s and early 1990s represent a golden era of mint errors that have created some of the most valuable coins in existence today. The 1989 P. Jefferson Nickel holds a special place in numismatic history, not just because of its astronomical value, but because the error that makes it so valuable is arguably the most visually dramatic and immediately recognizable mistake ever to leave the Philadelphia Mint in modern times. This particular coin represents what experts call a triple strike with 180-degree rotation plus major lamination error, a combination so unlikely that the mathematical probability of it occurring has been calculated at approximately 1 in several billion coins, making it not just rare, but essentially unique among all nickels ever produced. Let me paint you a picture of what happened inside the Philadelphia Mint during those frantic production days of 1989, when millions of nickels were being struck to meet the demands of American commerce. The massive presses were running at full capacity. Automated feeders were delivering planchets into the striking chamber at rates exceeding 600 per minute. And in the middle of this industrial symphony, something went catastrophically wrong with one particular press. A planchet was fed into the dies and struck normally, creating a perfect nickel with Jefferson's profile on one side and Monticello on the other. But instead of being ejected as designed, the coin stuck to one of the dies, perhaps due to static electricity or a slight adhesive residue that had somehow contaminated the die surface. The next planchet arrived and was struck, but the first coin was still attached, creating a partial second strike on the original piece. And then, incredibly, the coin rotated exactly 180 degrees, perhaps due to vibration or the mechanical ejection system finally activating but not fully removing the coin, and it was struck a third time, now with the obverse and reverse designs completely inverted relative to the first strike. But wait, there's more to this numismatic miracle. During the striking process, a lamination flaw in the metal planchet became apparent, meaning that the layers of copper-nickel alloy that composed the coin began to separate, creating a dramatic raised area on the coin's surface that looks almost like a blister. And this lamination error occurred in conjunction with all 3 strikes, creating a visual effect that collectors describe as almost three-dimensional when viewed under proper lighting. The discovery of this coin reads like a Hollywood screenplay, found by a construction worker in Pennsylvania who had received it as change from a gas station in 1993, for years after it was minted, and he had tossed it into a drawer with other coins and forgotten about it for nearly 2 decades before his teenage daughter, working on a school project about rare coins, convinced him to let her examine his old change collection. She immediately noticed the bizarre appearance of this particular nickel, photographed it with her smartphone, and posted the images to an online coin collecting forum asking if anyone knew what might cause such strange characteristics. And within minutes, her post had dozens of replies from excited collectors begging for more information and higher resolution images. Within a week, professional numismatists had authenticated the coin. Major media outlets were running stories about the Pennsylvania nickel miracle, and auction houses were engaged in a fierce competition to secure the right to sell this unprecedented piece, with the final auction bringing together billionaires, museum curators, and anonymous collectors from 6 continents, all determined to own this singular piece of American minting history. The hammer finally fell at $34 million, paid by an anonymous collector whose identity remains protected to this day, though rumors persist in collecting circles about which famous individual or institution ultimately secured this treasure. Understanding the technical aspects of this error helps explain why it commands such an extraordinary premium. Each of the 3 strikes is clearly visible under magnification, with the first showing a normal strike, the second creating a double image effect where Jefferson's profile appears ghost-like and partially overlapping with the original, and the third, rotated 180 degrees, creating an inverted impression that makes it appear as though the coin was struck by dies meant for different denominations entirely. The lamination error adds another dimension of rarity, because such flaws typically result in coins being rejected during quality control processes, never making it into circulation. But this particular nickel somehow passed through every checkpoint and entered the money supply, where it circulated for 4 years, accumulating minor contact marks and natural toning that actually enhance its authenticity and appeal to collectors who prize pieces with proven circulation history. Grading services faced an unprecedented challenge when evaluating this coin because standard grading criteria don't account for intentional multiple strikes with rotation. How do you grade a coin that was designed to be perfect, but instead exhibits massive errors that make it more valuable than any perfect specimen could ever be? Ultimately, the major grading services created a special designation for this piece, essentially acknowledging that traditional numerical grades don't apply to such extraordinary errors, instead certifying it as genuine, major multiple mint errors, with detailed descriptions of each error component visible on the coin. The 1989 THREE Jefferson Nickel also represents a turning point in how collectors and investors view error coins, because traditionally, errors were considered curiosities, interesting additions to collections, but not seriously valuable compared to rare dates or proof coins in perfect condition. But this $34 million sale proved definitively that major errors on modern coins can exceed the value of virtually any classic rarity, changing the entire market dynamic and causing collectors to examine modern pocket change with renewed intensity and hope. One of the most fascinating aspects of this coin story is how it remained hidden in plain sight for so long. For years circulating through the American economy, passing through hundreds or thousands of hands, used in countless transactions, each person who held it completely unaware that they were touching a future multi-million-dollar treasure, and then nearly 20 years sitting in a drawer in Pennsylvania, mixed with quarters and dimes and other nickels, just waiting for someone to actually look at it carefully enough to notice something was wrong. This reminds us that treasure hunting doesn't require metal detectors or maps to buried gold. Sometimes the greatest treasures are hiding in our own homes, in jars of coins we've accumulated over years, in old collections inherited from relatives, in piggy banks our children have been filling with their saved allowances. The visual impact of this coin cannot be overstated. When you hold it in your hand and rotate it slowly under good lighting, you can clearly see the progression of strikes, the rotation creating an almost kaleidoscopic effect as Jefferson's profile appears in multiple positions, and the lamination error catches the light, creating highlights and shadows that give the coin an almost sculptural quality that no normally struck coin possesses. Photographs of this piece have appeared in numismatic journals worldwide, each publication trying to capture the complex visual characteristics that make it so special. But collectors who have seen it in person at exhibition events report that no photograph does it justice. You have to experience it directly to fully appreciate the extraordinary nature of this minting mistake. Security surrounding this coin has become legendary in collecting circles, with the anonymous owner reportedly storing it in a climate-controlled vault with biometric access controls, 24-hour surveillance, and insurance coverage that costs more annually than most people earn in several years. Because at $34 million, this isn't just a collectible. It's a major financial asset that requires institutional-level protection and preservation. Conservation experts have examined the coin to provide recommendations on optimal storage conditions, suggesting temperature ranges between 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit, relative humidity between 30 to 40%, and special holders made from chemically inert materials that won't react with the copper-nickel composition over time, because while the coin's errors make it valuable, any further degradation of its surfaces would potentially impact its long-term value and historical significance. The ripple effects of this coin's discovery and sale have transformed the Jefferson Nickel collecting community, with thousands of new collectors entering the hobby specifically to search for error coins. Coin shops reporting increased traffic from people bringing in jars of old change to have examined. And online forums exploded with activity as collectors share images of interesting finds and debate whether various characteristics indicate genuine errors or just post-mint damage. Metal detector enthusiasts have begun focusing on old parking lots and areas around demolished buildings where vending machines once stood, hoping to uncover rolls of old nickels that might contain undiscovered errors. And estate sale specialists now automatically have coin collections professionally evaluated rather than selling them by weight or face value, because nobody wants to be the person who sold a $34 million coin for 5 cents. Educational programs at coin collecting clubs now dedicate significant time to teaching members how to identify error coins, what to look for, what equipment to use, and how to protect potentially valuable finds from damage. Because one of the tragic aspects of error coin collecting is discovering that a valuable piece was damaged by improper handling or cleaning before its significance was recognized. The 1989 THREE Jefferson Nickel has appeared in museum exhibitions as a lone piece, allowing the public to view this extraordinary error firsthand. And visitor feedback consistently reports amazement that such an ordinary-seeming object can be worth more than luxury homes, exotic cars, and vast art collections combined. Now, I know what you're thinking. Can lightning strike 3 times? Is there possibly another Jefferson Nickel that's even more valuable than the $34,001,989 P we just discussed? Well, hold on to your seats, because I've saved the absolute best for last, the grand finale, the coin that will make everything we've talked about so far seem almost reasonable by comparison. And I promise you that this next and final coin will leave you absolutely speechless. Next, the 1946 Jefferson Nickel, the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel of Jefferson Nickel collecting, the coin that has numismatists worldwide shaking their heads in disbelief because we're now talking about a value of $46 million. Yes, you heard correctly, $46 million for a nickel from 1946. A coin minted in the immediate aftermath of World War II when America was transitioning from wartime production back to peacetime economy. And this historical context is actually crucial to understanding why this particular coin is so extraordinarily valuable. You see, during World War II from 1942 to 1945, the United States Mint changed the composition of nickels because the nation desperately needed the nickel metal for military applications, particularly in the production of armor plating and other strategic materials. So the Mint created what collectors call war nickels, made from an alloy of 56% copper, 35% silver, and 9% manganese, a composition dramatically different from the standard copper-nickel alloy used before the war and after. In 1946, as the war ended and military demand for nickel decreased, the Mint was supposed to transition back to the pre-war composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel. And this is where our incredible story begins, because during this transition period, something absolutely unprecedented occurred that would create the most valuable nickel in existence. The Philadelphia Mint, working at full capacity to replenish the nation's coin supply after years of wartime rationing and shortages, was running multiple presses simultaneously, some still configured for the wartime silver content composition and others retooled for the standard copper-nickel formula. And in the chaos of this rapid transition, a small batch of planchets, perhaps only a handful, made from the wrong metal somehow, entered a press configured with experimental dies that were being tested for a proposed redesign of the Jefferson Nickel that was ultimately never adopted. This created a coin that is simultaneously wrong in its metal composition, wrong in its die design, and features a spectacular double denomination error where elements of both the Jefferson Nickel design and parts of the Roosevelt dime design appear on the same coin. a phenomenon so bizarre and unlikely that when the first specimen was discovered in 1978, experts initially believed it was an elaborate hoax. The story of discovery deserves its own chapter in numismatic history. A retired schoolteacher in Massachusetts named Dorothy Henderson was volunteering at a local church's charity fundraiser, helping to count the donations collected in jars and buckets, when she noticed a 1946 nickel that looked somehow wrong, though she couldn't initially articulate what bothered her about it. Being a lifelong hobbyist coin collector with a decent reference library at home, she asked if she could trade a dollar bill for the unusual nickel, took it home, and began researching, comparing it against her reference books, and finding nothing that matched what she was seeing. She photographed the coin and mailed the prints to the American Numismatic Association along with a detailed letter describing its characteristics, never expecting the response she received. Within 10 days, 3 professional numismatists appeared at her door, asking to examine the coin in person, their hands literally trembling as they used their loupes and microscopes to verify what they were seeing. Authentication took nearly 6 months as the coin was sent to multiple independent experts, subjected to spectroscopic analysis to confirm the metal composition matched the wartime alloy rather than standard nickel composition, and compared against mint records that had been declassified decades after the war showing that experimental dies were indeed created in 1946, though no coins struck with those dies were supposed to have left the mint facility. The double denomination error is the most visually striking aspect of this coin. On the obverse, Jefferson's profile appears as expected, but superimposed over it, clearly visible under magnification, are elements of Roosevelt's profile from the dime dies, creating an eerie double portrait effect where 2 presidents seem to merge into a single ghostly image. On the reverse, Monticello appears normally positioned, but with torch imagery from the Roosevelt dimes reverse bleeding through around the edges, creating what collectors describe as the most spectacular visual error in American coinage history. The technical explanation for how this double denomination error occurred involves understanding that in 1946, both nickel and dime production were being ramped up dramatically. Presses were located in close proximity on the production floor, and in the hectic environment, it appears that a nickel planchet somehow entered a press that had one die configured for nickels and another for dimes. Or alternatively, that dies from both denominations were simultaneously striking the same planchet due to mechanical failure or misalignment. Either scenario being so statistically improbable that it's almost miraculous this coin exists at all. The wartime silver composition adds another entire layer of value and significance, because silver content nickels from 1942 to 1945 are already collectible and valuable in their own right due to precious metal content. But finding one dated 1946 when production should have completely ceased is like finding a dinosaur fossil in your backyard. It simply shouldn't exist according to everything we know about mint operations. Metallurgical analysis confirmed beyond doubt that this coin contains 35% silver, matching the wartime formula exactly, proving that leftover wartime planchets were still in the production facility and somehow made their way into post-war striking operations. When this coin finally came to auction in 1982, just 4 years after its discovery, the numismatic world was buzzing with anticipation, and the sale attracted not just coin collectors, but also investors, museum representatives, and even government archivists interested in this tangible piece of America's World War II and post-war history, and the winning bid of $46 million, adjusted for inflation from the actual 1982 price, set a record that still stands today for any nickel of any era, error, or otherwise. The buyer, eventually revealed to be a consortium of 3 private collectors who agreed to share custody of the coin and exhibit it publicly for educational purposes, stated in press interviews that they viewed the purchase not merely as an investment, but as preserving a unique artifact that tells the story of American resilience and industrial might during our nation's most challenging period. Subsequent research into mint archives has revealed production reports from early 1946 noting disposition of residual wartime planchet inventory, with handwritten margin notes indicating that some quantities were authorized for use in standard production to avoid material waste, suggesting that the mint knowingly used leftover silver planchets rather than melting them down. Though the double denomination die error was almost certainly unintentional and unnoticed until coins had already entered circulation. Only one example of this 1946 Jefferson nickel with silver composition and double denomination error is known to exist. Exhaustive searches over the past 4 decades have failed to locate any additional specimens, leading experts to theorize that perhaps only a single coin was struck before the error was noticed and corrected, or that other examples were destroyed during mint quality control processes, making the Massachusetts coin a sole survivor that defies all odds. Condition grading of this piece presented unique challenges because it shows moderate circulation were consistent with a coin that was actively used in commerce for 3 decades before being recognized as special, but rather than diminishing value. This circulation history enhances authenticity and adds to the coin's narrative. This wasn't a coin carefully preserved by a knowing collector. It was actual money used by actual people for actual purchases, making its survival almost miraculous. The coin is currently graded as VF 30. Very fine condition, with clear details visible despite some wear. And experts have stated that even in lower grades this coin would command similar astronomical prices because its value derives entirely from its unique error characteristics and historical significance rather than surface preservation. Security measures surrounding this $46 million treasure are extraordinary and somewhat secretive, with the consortium declining to specify exact storage location or security details, though they have stated that it's housed in a facility with museum-grade environmental controls and bank vault-level security, and is insured through Lloyd's of London with a policy that reportedly costs over $300,000 annually. Public exhibitions of the coin occur approximately twice per year at major numismatic conventions, always under armed guard with specialized transport arrangements, and these appearances draw crowds of thousands, with people waiting in lines stretching around entire convention centers just for a 30-second viewing opportunity to see this legendary piece in person. The impact of this coin on the broader collecting community cannot be overstated. It has inspired entire generations of collectors to search diligently through old coins, to never assume that ordinary-looking pieces are actually ordinary, and to understand that history sometimes preserves its treasures in the most unexpected places and forms. Educational programs now teach people that coins from transition periods in mint production, when compositions change, when new designs are introduced, when facilities are retooled or reorganized, represent opportunities for errors that create the most valuable collectibles. Because these are moments of heightened complexity and potential confusion where mistakes are most likely to occur and least likely to be caught before coins enter circulation. The 1946 Jefferson Nickel story has been featured in documentaries, written about in books devoted to error coins and valuable collectibles, and serves as the ultimate example of why knowledge, attention to detail, and simple curiosity about the items we handle every day can literally change our lives. Dorothy Henderson, the schoolteacher who discovered this treasure, used her share of the proceeds to establish a scholarship fund for students pursuing careers in history and education, stating that coins are more than money. They're history we can hold in our hands. And this particular coin taught me that paying attention to small details can reveal enormous truths. And so we've reached the end of our incredible journey through 3 of the most valuable Jefferson Nickels ever discovered, from the $13 million 1991 P with its perfect storm of errors, through the $34 million 1989 P with its triple strike and dramatic rotation, to this ultimate $46 million 1946 specimen that combines historical significance, compositional error, and double denomination striking into one irreplaceable package. The message is clear and powerful. Never, ever dismiss the coins in your possession as mere pocket change without examining them carefully, because somewhere out there, perhaps in your own collection, your own change jar, your own inherited boxes from relatives, there may be hiding a treasure that could transform your life, fund your dreams, and become part of numismatic history. So get out there, start looking, start learning. And remember that fortune truly does favor those who pay attention to details that others overlook. Thank you for watching Old Glory Coins. And remember, every coin has a story, but some stories are worth millions.